Welcome to the chalkboard.
We have to say our names first.
Oh, right.
Okay.
All right.
Let's try again. All right. I'm Ashley.
I'm Lily. Welcome to the chalkboard.
We're glad that you guys are here for episode 4. You may notice we have a bit of a different setup today. I feel like I'm just really far away from you.
I know. It's not great. Hi, buddy.
Hi.
Did you guys peep the new sound? We have an official soundtrack.
It's pretty cool.
Shout out to my friend Wes Harris. I am Wes Harris on Instagram, but I texted him a couple weeks ago and I was like, hey bestie, my friend and I are starting a podcast and we need a jingle, you know. I feel like it's the last thing, the jingle for a podcast is
that was really just the last finishing touch that we needed. Yeah. I think.
Yeah.
But check it out. I mean, it's pretty us, I think.
I think so. I love the chalkboard sounds in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's really fun.
It's simple, but just perfect. It's spot on. Just right.
I love it. Yeah.
Yeah. So what are we here to talk about today, Lily?
Everything and nothing.
Another obsessed for you guys. If you've made it to episode 4, honestly, congrats.
Yeah, congrats. We're happy to have you here. Yeah. We're happy to be here.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's another dreary Saturday, Saturday.
I know.
It's hard.
It's cold and rainy. There's not even any snow on the ground.
No.
It's just...
Well, when I woke up, there was.
Oh.
It was at least here. It was icy and snowy everywhere. And then it all melted a couple hours in.
Yeah. Yeah. So we took a break last week and we were kind of talking about the direction we thought the podcast should go. And we have a little notes app going of ideas. So we have a lot of ideas out there, but something that has been really evident in our lives this last week or so is just this idea of a waiting season.
Yeah.
And we were talking more, and Lily brought up the great point that really life in and of itself is a waiting season. If you think about it, we're always waiting for the next thing. We're always waiting for the next job. We're always waiting for the next relationship, or we're waiting to have a kid, or we're waiting to do whatever. And it's that's not a fun way to live.
Yeah.
If you're always kind of just looking for the next thing.
Yeah.
And so we wanted to talk about how we can be present in life in general, and kind of embrace this constant waiting season that really never ends in life. And especially as women, how can we show up, be present, and pursue a life for ourselves?
Yeah. And really, I was telling Ash, begs the question, are we really waiting?
Mm-hmm.
I think for me growing up, I don't know about you, if you heard it this way, but it just always felt like the push was whatever it is that you wanted to make it. For a lot of people, it's marriage. Once you get there, you've arrived. And it's something I've heard a lot. And I don't think that people are have bad intentions with saying this, but I hear a lot, you're just stewarding your single season so well.
Classic.
Classic. They'll be you're doing such a good job waiting. But I'm not.
Right.
I'm just living my life, and I'm really excited about my life, and I think that I've since I was young been disheartened, and I try really hard not to take what people say that to heart, because I don't think they mean certain things by it, but just for my own mindset's sake, rephrasing it and making sure that I'm not living in this always in this tension of what's to come.
Yeah.
There are things, don't get me wrong, that I'm waiting for.
Yeah.
There
absolutely.
are goals that I want to achieve and things that I want to pursue.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm also just living my life.
Yeah.
And living it with open hands, because I feel the Bible says make your plans and commit them to the Lord.
Yep.
Because I can make a plan and it not come to pass at all. But do I still trust God? do I still believe in the Lord?
Right.
Like, am I choosing to honor him with my life?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that really like spurs me on and asking myself a lot of really hard and deep questions of like, what am I choosing and why am I choosing it right now?
I mean, for those who listened to episode 3, I thought Amber, our guest, said it perfectly.
Yeah.
You know, how much we trust God is how quick we are to obey him.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be this big thing. It's like daily choosing to make that step of obedience.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe we get it wrong. Maybe we mess up, but at least we're trying to be obedient to him.
Yeah.
And as long as we're honoring him in those decisions, it doesn't really matter if it's right or left. As long as we're honoring him, he's gonna keep us on the right path of life. So I guess my question for you is, like, how do we start this whole process of obedience? And like, how do we honor the Lord in creating a life for ourselves that doesn't involve a relationship or doesn't involve, you know, the next best thing in life or this goal that we feel like we have to achieve to be happy? Like, how do we find happiness in the moment and choose to be obedient to the Lord in the moment?
Yeah. Oh, that's such a great question. And I think the question itself lends itself to the answer,
Mm-hmm.
which is where do we start the Bible? You know, I think when I'm thinking about obedience to the Lord and what Amber kind of said, I think what can be easy is to be like, okay, well, like God knows my life and my purpose and I have one path, and sometimes people even preach that, but I don't think that that's necessarily like the truth. Where it's like, okay, if I like do this little thing, it's off. Like, I think being obedient to the Lord isn't about only did God put a desire in my heart and I'm gonna like pursue that thing, right? Like, for example, I know that I love music. I'm a songwriter, and that's something that God wants me to steward well. But I don't think that means being obedient to God. That's like the only way I'm obedient to God. Me being obedient to God is loving my neighbor. Me being obedient to God is, does my life show the fruits of the Spirit? I think it's in Galatians where we have the list of the fruit of the Spirit, right? And so when I'm looking at, okay, the fruits of the Spirit are joy, peace, kindness, self-control. I think that's a great place to start. And it's like, how am I someone that bears the fruit of love? How do I become someone that bears the fruit of self-control? And that's where it starts to get into the nitty-gritty. And I think that's a life that's obedient to the Lord, where it's like, okay, I'm going to choose to like love someone well. This is like a silly example, and I feel like a lot of people use it, but like when you're in the car and you're driving, right? And just like choosing to have patience and love towards people. You never know what someone's going through or things like that. So I think that's where obedience starts. It starts in all the small ways that you choose to show the fruit of the Spirit, or to have fruit of the Spirit in your life.
I like that. Something else that Amber mentioned last week was knowing your spiritual gifts and walking those out. And that's something I've really thought about is, I mean, that goes back to episode 1 too, where we talked about filling your own cup and not comparing it to anyone else's cup. So taking time to really think and pray through, you know, what are my spiritual gifts that the Lord has blessed me with, and how can I walk in those obediently? And maybe that is as simple as just loving your neighbor well. And maybe the Lord has put a spiritual gift in your life of mercy or grace, or maybe you have a gift of speaking into others through like words of affirmation. Maybe that's not your thing, and that's okay. Like, maybe it's you show it more through gift giving or actions or whatever. And you know, it doesn't have to be this complicated thing. And
because not everybody feels called to pursue a career,
right?
Not everyone feels called to have a family,
right?
And so when you think of it, when you remove this, there's a couple things that I wanted to share. The first one being, I shared it, I think, with you on Instagram, but it's like, it says, you are an image, it's Ian Simpkins. You are an image bearer with work to do, not a work doer with an image to maintain. And so when you strip it down to this, like, I am a child of God. Like, my life isn't a job. My life
Right.
isn't all these other things. It's like, it's not about maintaining this perfect image or this life where publicly it's one way and privately it's another.
Right.
It's about
Right.
this holistic life where obedience to God is saying, Jesus, you're the Lord of my life. And that's the thing that's been the most transformational for me.
Yep.
Really submitting to Jesus and saying, I trust you with my life. And so what does that mean? Well, if I'm trusting someone, it means that if you say that the best way for me to live is patiently, then I'm going to be then I'm going to have to be patient.
That prayer is a dangerous one where you're like, Lord, I just pray for patience, and he's going to surely put situations in your life where you have to be patient.
Never seen a prayer answered faster in
so
my
quick,
life.
literally day of, and you're like, really?
Truly God.
But no,
Yeah.
I mean, it's true.
Yeah. And then this other thing that I saw on Instagram by Tim Ross, he said, go enjoy other aspects of your life until you are caught by surprise by God's timing.
That's so good.
So I think that happens. I mean, it's happened for me, right? Where I feel like God has spoken to me about this thing or that thing. And even last night we were talking and I shared something that I felt like the Lord spoke to me at a worship night.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, yeah, God speaks these things to us, but am I going to trust the promise or am I going to trust the promise giver?
Right.
And when I'm trusting the promise giver, then I can go, okay, well, like, this will come to pass. And it's not really in my hands how it comes to pass. You know, because we can create this whole narrative and story for ourselves around what we think it should look like. But if I'm going, Jesus, I trust you with my life, then that means however I get there, like, I'm just trusting.
Right. And it's like, do we love God for who he is, or do we love him for the things that he can do for us?
Yeah.
That's something I've had to come back to in my life also, where I can feel like the Lord has given me a promise, and maybe he spoke to me through a worship night, or maybe he spoke to me through prayer, my quiet time, maybe he spoke to me through another person. But then it's like, for me, if anything happens that makes it seem like that promise isn't going to come to pass, I'm like, well, then I start to doubt God. And that's when those doubts come in. And that's how subtly the enemy works. But it's like remembering that, think about Abraham and Sarah in the Bible. Okay, they were given a promise that they were going to have a child. But the Lord said, I'm going to bless you with a child this year. He didn't tell them when. He just said this year.
Yeah.
So they had to sit back, surrender, and trust. Like, the Lord was going to act. They had no clue when. But like you said, if we sit back and let the Lord work and give him space to work and not try to like control these situations and people in our lives, let him take us by surprise. Yeah. In his way and his timing. Yeah.
He says to Abraham, this is an Old Testament figure, and I believe in Genesis
15, I think.
Yeah. He says to Abraham, you are going to be a father of many. Look at the stars. Like, that's how many children you're going to have. Yeah. No, I mean, when you look at the stars, there's no feasible way that you can have that many children. Right. Like, if maybe there were 5 stars, maybe 10 stars. Yeah. You know? Yeah. What was the one show where it's like 19 kids and counting?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Maybe 20, but like, there's no way Abraham was ever going to live on earth long enough to see that promise come to pass. Yeah. And so that's a huge thing. Like, how do you go, wait, like, God, you gave me this promise, but like, I'm not even going to live to see it. It's never, I think, about the thing. It's about, I'm going to trust you. Yeah. That like, this is going to come to pass. Even, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, like, sorry, I thought you meant Abraham and Sarah. That was Genesis 15, I think. But at some point in Genesis.
Yeah, at some point in Genesis.
Abraham is given this promise. And I love what you said about how he really never saw it come to pass. Yeah. And that's true in our lives too. I mean, I'm thinking of a situation in my head where I was part of this small group of athletes in college. And there was one of my friends that I tried to get come each and every week, and they never showed up. Okay, 5 years pass, right? We're talking on the phone, and they're like, oh, by the way, like, I'm leading an athlete small group now, and I'm doing all these
That's
things
awesome.
through my church. And it's like, you never know, like you really never know the seeds that you're planting when you are walking in your spiritual gifts and doing the things that the Lord are calling you to do. And you may not see that promise come to pass in your life, but you're being obedient to him. And
we want to see the fruit so bad because we're so, I mean, I don't think it's just a this generation thing. I think that's been true for
instant gratification.
I think that's true for all of humanity over generations, where it's like, why isn't this happening faster? Why am I not seeing the results that I want? And I was telling my mom about, this isn't like an original thought, but King or David in the Bible is anointed in 1 Samuel to become king, and he still goes back and works in the fields, knowing that he's been anointed to be. It's not like a false like promise or anything like that. Like he's just literally anointed to become king one day. And mind you, his dad's not a king. Right. So it's like, okay, what's happening? And his job as a teenager is to, you know, fend off lions, fend off bears, like do field work. And, you know, nothing wrong with that. And he's anointed for it and has to go back to the fields. And, you know, we all know, well, not we all know, but you and I know the story of David and Goliath, where, you know, because of that, he's prepared to fight this giant and doesn't use swords, doesn't want to wear any of the gear. It's just like, give me 5 stones. You know, give me a slingshot and give me stones. And I think that's an amazing story because it speaks to so many things. But the first thing I always think of is David used what he knew how to use. And so many of us try to do things other people's way and use resources that other people have because we see it done this one way. And it's not always a bad thing because, you know, if you see it done well, you kind of want to do it how other people do it. At the same time, God has given you a specific set of gifts, and God has given you your eye and your abilities and you're this and you're that. And so walking into a room with confidence, knowing I have the things, like I've just been doing my thing. And so when an opportunity is presented to me, like I actually do know how to handle this because I have my specific set of skills. So that's just one of many things. But I think I wanted to ask you earlier, how do you find yourself like in the season of life that you're in now? How is it that you're making space to be present? Like, how do you get yourself to be like in a present mindset? You know,
it's tough for me. I mean, I'm definitely a control freak. I definitely find it hard to surrender to the Lord a lot. But I think a big part of it is the community I have around me. I mean, our group of girlfriends that all
they're so awesome. We love you.
Shout out to all of our girlfriends. I mean, they're just
girlies.
This is really the first time in my life I've had such a strong community of girls around me that love the Lord, but also hold me accountable in staying present and, you know, not letting me settle for things that are not God's best for me in my life. So that's a big part of it, and reflecting and meditating on that. Like that's such an answered prayer that I've had for so long. Like I've wanted to have this community for so long, and I've prayed about it in the past, and again, it's just not coming to fruition after lots of years of just being intentional about the environments I'm putting myself in, the people I'm surrounding myself
huge the environments you're putting yourself in.
I mean, it's true. Like, you know, a couple years ago I kind of had this breaking point in my life where I didn't like the way I was living. I didn't like the people in the environments I was surrounding myself with, and the Lord like really broke me in that moment. And I kind of had this like crisis of like, what am I doing with my life? You know, do I actually want to be pursuing a career in what I'm going to school for? Do I actually enjoy the people that are around me? Like, do I feel like I can be myself and show up authentically? Like, do I feel happy in the town I'm living in? Like all these things, and the Lord just kind of broke me. And it was at that point that I knew I needed to just be more intentional.
Yeah.
So I moved out of Charlottesville for a little bit, lived in upstate New York, which was crazy to people at the time. Found a great church community, started volunteering with Fellowship of Christian Athletes, finished out stuff with school and started working, and it was such a shift in my life. Like, I spent my weekends like volunteering with Upward Basketball at my church instead of other things that I, used to be doing. And it was not easy by any means, and I'm not here saying I was perfect. I mean, it was a very up and down couple years right when I finished college. But looking back on that, it required just intentionality in the people and the environments I was surrounding myself with. And now, being back in Charlottesville, it's like, oh, I've done this before. Like, the Lord has taught me how to do that.
Yeah.
And again, transition is never easy.
Yeah.
But I was like, okay, no, like you said, the Lord's equipped me for this. It's scary. And that's most things in life that he calls us to be obedient to. Like, this is really scary. Coming back home, being around family again, like, but being in a town where I don't know anyone, like, because all the girls I grew up with, all the friends I grew up with were gone.
Yeah.
And so it's like, that's scary, but I'm equipped. The Lord's got me. So I don't know if that answered your question about being present, but I think that is a huge part of it. It's tough. I mean, I still every single day like struggle with just wanting the next thing, and feeling like I'm not good enough where I'm at right now without the next thing. But then I sit there and I'm like, okay, look at all these things to be thankful for and to have gratitude for that I prayed for maybe 5 years ago, and it's just now coming to fruition. I mean, all throughout the Psalms it says, like, meditate on my words, meditate on my laws, meditate on this, meditate on that. And it's like, we should do that in our lives too. Meditate on how he has worked in our lives, how he stayed faithful to his promises, how he is working right now, and trust that, like, he's going to do that in the future too. And it may not be our way or our timing, but he's faithful to that. If we're, seeking his kingdom first and his righteousness first before the things of this world.
Oh, that's so good. Thanks for sharing more of your story on here. Reminded me of last night. So last night Ashley played parents versus faculty at her school.
We're still a little upset. I'm still processing that game because we lost in overtime to the parents, and wasn't really expecting that result, honestly. I was feeling really confident with how I stacked the faculty team with a lot of alumni, but it's okay.
It's all good. But when we, after the game, me and our friend Amanda and Ashley, like, went over to Ashley's, and we were like, we have to debrief, like, so much has happened in our week this week. And so Amanda, we're like literally in Ashley's bedroom, like on the bed, just like, literally. Oh my gosh, how was your week? Oh my gosh, how was your week? And I was on the way back home with Amanda. It's like midnight, and I'm exhausted and just tired, and you know how you get tired and you get emotional. And I was just like, I just love my life so much. I told her, I was like, it was so hard in high school for me. One, I was always the girl that was like, I'm a guy's girl, like.
Literally me.
If I could go back and
I'm like, guys are just easier to hang out with.
Like, so easy to talk to. I just don't relate to the girls. And I think I have seen my life just be so, and I love my guy friends, don't get me wrong. My life.
Shout out to all our guy friends.
Shout out to the dudes that our guy friends watch this, and we love you guys.
W content, they always say.
But like, sometimes I need a little more than W content, you know? And it's like, I need
sometimes we need to yap.
I need,
and we're not gonna
like
I get it. We're not gonna do that to our guy friends. They don't want to yap. It's fine. But
Some of them do.
Some of them do. Yeah, some of them do.
But like, I love when the girls are like, "Oh my gosh, it's just like the way that you said that, and when you went into this very specific thing, and like, you know, the girls like they notice the colors and the intonation and the all this stuff, and I'm like, thank you so much."
We're all delusional together.
Yeah, no, it's fine. But I think one thing I was thinking about was just like this in high school. It was so hard for me to create and maintain friendships.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
But I was noticing this pattern where I kept choosing friendships, like codependent friendships
Mm-hmm.
with my girlfriends, and that never ended well because we're not meant to be like codependent on, you know, people like that. And it was really hard for me to break that cycle because you feel lonely, and so you don't want to be alone all the time, or like there are just hard things that happen in your family or with your other friendships, and so it's like, how do I just like depend on this person? And I think I felt the Lord really calling me to depend on him more, and that's a really hard thing when you go, okay, God, I need to look more like you. And what that means is also setting healthy boundaries for myself, like you said, the environments I step into, the people I surround myself with. I'm not saying drop all your friends. I'm not saying drop all the people you're around, because everyone deserves to, like, you know, receive love and then see the love of Christ through us.
And extend grace to people. You have to meet people where they're at. You never know what people are going through.
Exactly.
However,
what am I doing? Am I, like, let's be real. Like, am I going to spend my Saturday nights partying and getting blackout drunk? Like, stuff like that, you know, where it's like, is that the life I want to live?
Right.
Am I trying to live a life where I'm overly indulgent, or am I trying to live a life just trying to escape? Because I just don't want to feel my feelings, and because I don't
cover over the feelings.
Yeah, because I don't want to be obedient to the Lord.
Right.
Like, as it's harder. It's easier to do the things that make us feel good in the moment. And it's harder to pursue the things that make us more loving people, or more patient people, or more kind people. Kindness in the face of a lot of hatred, or kindness in the face of, I didn't like how that sounded, or, you know what I mean? Our response to things matters, especially as Christ followers. So I feel like, when
you first accept Christ into your life, there's like a high for a little bit. And you're like, this is so great. Like, I love Jesus so much. And you just want to tell everyone. But then it's like, then life sets in and you're like, oh, wait, this is hard. Yeah. Like, I have to be obedient to him and walk out in obedience. And, you know, there's salvation, but then there's sanctification, and sanctification is a process we're on for the rest of our lives after we accept Christ into our hearts. And it's not easy, and it's gonna be up and down, and that's okay. It's meant to be up and down. So I've learned that with myself too, like to extend myself grace in those moments as well.
I feel like we had a lot of really great points today. And
did we miss anything?
We probably did. I could honestly keep going for like another hour.
I know.
But for the sake of, we're trying to keep these podcasts shorter for our own attention spans as much as the listeners.
And we can go into like our individual lives a little bit more in future episodes, like
for sure.
the careers that we both chose, and you know,
I feel like we could talk about being present more. I don't know, there's so many things about this topic that we could talk about
and more. We're both like, you know, we're in the same stage of life, but you know, like I'm single, you're in a relationship, that comes with different levels of having to be present and different lessons that come with that. So you know, that's big. We're both in different fields. Like you're on the more artistic side of things, I'm more like the sporty side of things. So you know, there's a lot, but I think just kind of remembering that it can be as simple as, like you said, the fruits of the Spirit, and kind of assessing spiritual gifts in that way of you know, what do you feel most called to, or like what do you feel like the Lord like what gifts has he put in your life to speak into other people and to disciple to other people.
And I'd add to that, what gifts has he put in your life to speak to you? Because I know for me, I don't know what it's like for you with sports, but for me, songwriting is probably like the number one way that I process, and how I process things with God too. And so not all the songs that I write are for anybody to hear. A lot of them are just
Right.
for me.
Right.
And once I realized that, which was last year, was huge because it's like, oh my gosh, this is like a gift for me. I think, I want to cry. But
it's okay. Let it out.
When I think about just how our society functions, and I don't think this is always bad, but it's like if you have a talent, you're an entertainer.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just have a gift, and it's supposed to bless you as much as it can bless other people. Like I think, there are songs I want to write for people and that I put out, but a lot of times, I don't know, I think God is so kind to like give us those things for ourselves too.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Do you feel that way with sports at all?
Yeah. I mean, I love to write as well. So I'm a big journaler. Not a songwriter. Definitely not a songwriter. I mean, I love music. I believe in you. I love music. I mean, I definitely connect to the Lord, I think, the best through journaling and through music. Just, worship music, love it. Like, that's how I feel the Lord, I would say, the closest. But in terms of sports, I think for me, I love to coach young girls because I look back on my life and am sad that I didn't have the best experiences surrounding basketball and always put so much pressure on myself all the time and wasn't always coached the way that I felt like I should have been coached, just with my personality. And I'm just like a very not emotional person, but I'm hard on myself. So now, however many years later, now that I get to coach girls, it's like I get to coach them the way that I was never coached, and I get to speak to them and instill confidence in them, but also like share the love of God through a sport that I love so much and am so passionate about, and I think instills so much confidence in young girls and just teaches work ethic and teamwork and just all these great things. So I think that's where I see the Lord, just in my ability to show the love of God through something that I'm passionate about. So it's probably a little more action based than words. Like I'm not gonna outwardly just say like, my testimony on the first day of practice, but it happens over time as you get to know girls and as you get to know them off the court as well and learn their stories, and those conversations I've found just happen kind of naturally. So that's where I've seen it, and just being present in that. Like people always ask me, what's your end goal with your job? Like, do you want to be an athletic director at like a college one day? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I was like, I really don't know. Like, as of right now, like, no, that's not really the end goal. Yeah. It's just like, I'm happy with the position I have right now and the things I'm able to do with it. And
you're doing such a great job with it too.
Thank you.
It was really sweet. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. No, but last night we were watching the game, and it's like faculty versus parents, but this little girl walks by. I don't know. She was probably like older than I thought she was. She looked like she was like 13 to me. And she just goes, "Go Coach Taylor." She walked by and I was like, I love that. Like you just, like you get to be with a really cool age group.
Guys, it's bad when I'm crying.
But it was just really cool to see you in your element, and like, it was cool. I don't know, you were having fun, and also like, seeing you with your mom, I think it was just so special. But just like right now, like I get to, people all the time are like, oh, you want to be the next Taylor Swift? And I'm like, I don't know. Yeah. I don't think Taylor Swift gets to enjoy her small hometown, and like,
no, probably not.
Yeah, like I can sit courtside with my boyfriend and nobody's like taking pictures and blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? Like I'm just hanging out and supporting my friend and seeing the high school girls that I get to like lead in a small group, and like there's just a lot of things that are really special about life when you actually like take the time to notice what's around you and to just give yourself fully with what you have in the moment, with your friendships, with your job, with the things that you're called to lead, or the things that you're called to follow, you know?
For sure. Well, tears were shed. This one was a little longer than our other ones, but I think it was worth it for sure.
Hot take time.
Yeah, I guess we should do a hot take. Now that we're all emotional over here. What was our hot take?
Our hot take was, how late is too late to take down Kristen's decor? Inspired by last night when I walk into Coach Taylor's apartment.
Coach Taylor.
I walk into Ashley's apartment and there's a silver Christmas tree up, and I'm like, okay, but yes, Ashley, we're on the same wavelength. Like, we both still have our trees up.
Mind you, my roommates put the tree up, and they wanted it to be like an all year long seasonal tree, and I said that's fine. I think it's cute. But my personal Christmas tree in my room downstairs, was it up? No. Does Lily have a tree up? Yes.
I didn't know that. I thought it was your tree.
Okay.
I thought we were on the same page about something.
So when do you take your tree down?
So I don't know. I kind of like it. It's cute.
I mean, it is cute, but it's also February, whatever today is. 11th. So
listen, my excuse is that I've been traveling.
Okay. That's fair. You have been traveling.
So
you've been busy.
When I come home, like when I traveled, was here for a week. Traveled, was here for a week. Traveled, was here for a week. So like, I need to take it down.
Life gets busy.
That I just unpacked yesterday.
Okay. That's another good hot take. Like, do you unpack the day you get back from a trip, or does it happen like a week later?
One time it took me 3 months.
Okay. 3 months is a long time.
New York took me 2 months.
That's wild. Yeah, I am definitely not the night of. People that do that like come back from a trip and like shower, unpack, do laundry. Good for you. Because
good for you. Laundry couldn't be me.
No, could not be me. Yeah.
I desperately want to be the kind of person that unpacks the same night.
Yeah.
But the thing is that I got home at like 1 a.m. the other night. So
right. So like,
gonna unpack.
It's way too late. I think I'm also the type of person who I'm not like, I don't unpack when I get back from a trip, but I've noticed like if my apartment is clean, I feel like I'm very put together.
For sure.
Something that will never be put together and or clean in my life is my car. Like, ask any girl that's ridden with me.
Yeah.
It just is not gonna happen.
Yeah, but you're a coach. You're carrying a lot of coach things.
I guess that is true. I like live out of my car.
Yeah.
So maybe one day I'll get my life together and have everything.
I thought about
be
getting
clean.
a tote for my car.
Okay.
For the trunk.
It's not a bad idea.
So I could just throw stuff in there.
Yeah.
But I'm like, but then there's still stuff. I'm just gonna have more room for more stuff.
Yeah. I don't know.
Well, thanks for joining us. It's definitely too late to have a tree up.
A what?
It's definitely too late to have a tree up.
Oh, a tree up, yeah.
Yeah. But I don't know, mine's small, it's demure.
Very demure, very cutesy.
Very cutesy. There's an angel on top, so that's spiritual.
True. Well, to continue on the Gen Z sayings here, I'd say that episode left no crumbs. I mean,
we cooked!
We absolutely cooked that episode. So, I really
we leave you with our
I'm cringing
song.
Right now. Yeah.
Okay, bye.
Bye. I think we should have said ate instead of cooked, right?
No, we cooked.
Oh, okay.